Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled "Neighbor Threatened to Sue Me for Selling My House Below Market Value. I Got Revenge by Giving It Away to an Orphanage for Free." Sometimes it really does not pay to be an a-hole, and this is where the story of me, my neighbor, and my family's land comes in. I have always lived in the city and I love it. I plan on staying there, so when I inherited my grandfather's land on my mother's side, I honestly did not know what to do. This land was almost 60 acres in the countryside with a good-sized farmhouse. It's like one of those farmhouses that has a creepy number of rooms and is really old and has lots of fireplaces. Don't get me wrong, it was cute and stuff and in surprisingly good shape, but just really not my style. Also, where I live, it is more normal for guys my age to live in the city, where it is also close to my work. Maybe if I had a family and could use the quiet country life, I would find it more appealing. I also became incredibly busy around the time that I inherited this land. I had been promoted in the company I worked for and was traveling often. I barely had time to deal with my own apartment and its upkeep and bills, let alone the farmhouse and property. I was frustrated. I knew that I needed to just sell the damn place. So I got myself a real estate agent and all that jazz and started the process of putting the home up on the market and someone taking it off my hands. I was not even trying to gain much from selling the home, to be honest. Finally, I got an offer from someone for a price that I felt was great. It was fair, I did not feel like they were getting it for basically free, and it was only a little under my asking price. During the time that it takes to go through all of the whatnots with selling a home, I received a peculiar letter in the mail. It was from an attorney representing the man who owned the neighboring property to the east of the farmhouse. He was apparently pissed and suing me for selling my grandfather's land and home for below market value. I was truly perplexed by this strange letter. I'm not an expert in law, lawyers or real estate, so I had no idea what was true or false, but I could not help but feel like this person was up to no good. How would it even be possible for someone to sue a person for selling their own property for less than market value? Whatever the crackpot man was up to, I was not going to wait around for him to pull some slick BS. I first asked my real estate agent if this seemed legitimate, and she was also confused by it. She had a friend that was an attorney that dealt with common real estate disputes and put me in contact with him. This attorney's name was Patrick, and he was an entertaining man who also assured me that this was some unusual and also impossible nonsense. When he reached out to the attorneys that supposedly were representing the neighbor, they said that they did have him as a client, but not for this issue. At this point, it is quite obvious that this neighbor used the header from another paper and forged this document himself. I'll admit that it is clever, but it was not too hard to debunk it. I decided to take the next step in my own hands and speak with the man. I did have a letter from my attorney and his stating that he was essentially a liar and a weirdo, but in lawyer terms, of course. When I walked onto this man's property, I realized that he was probably an egomaniac perfectionist. His yard was immaculate and his home was beautiful. There was nothing about his curb appeal that I could complain about. He answered the door to reveal a middle-aged, average-looking white dude with glasses. Also, truly nothing to complain about, but also nothing really special. No offense to average-looking white dudes, because I'm probably one of them. Anyway, he was clearly pretty pissed about me coming over to prove him wrong and tell him to shove it where the sun doesn't shine. But before I could tell him the last part, he began spewing some completely unsolicited, hateful crap, not about me, but about other people. He said that he's not a fan of people who cannot afford nice things like him, and the last thing that he wants or needs is a family with a bunch of kids running around causing trouble. Jesus, what a douchebag. I just stood there listening to him ramble about hating the poor and how much he dislikes children until I couldn't take it anymore. I interrupted his angry little soapbox session and told him that I really just came to deliver my attorney's cease and desist letter and for him to screw off. He proceeded to shout at me from the doorway that he would find a way to stop me from selling it to some bottom feeder and that it wasn't the last that I had heard of him. What is he? Some kind of movie villain? Again, this man is so full of himself, it's ridiculous. So I pondered and pondered, what could I do to make an even bigger point to this man? Was doing something even worth it? That is when I decided to have a little drinking session with my cat and reflect on what the next course of action would be. To be honest, the drinking session ended with me pretty hammered and laughing at the office. I ended up calling my friend who gave me a brilliant idea of donating the property and farmhouse to an orphanage in town. She said that it would be a great tax write-off, plus the current orphanage is quite old and in need of repairs. Apparently her sister volunteered there. Truly genius that woman is. I contacted my real estate agent and attorney to see if this could all work out, and it turned out it could. And my friend was right, the farmhouse was perfect for the orphanage and it was a pretty nice tax write-off. I'll admit that I felt bad for having to back out of the deal with the first offer, but he was pretty understanding when I told him what I had decided to do. The best part was soon to come, because it was only a matter of time before the poor person and kid-hating neighbor would find out what had happened. I had apparently struck a chord with the man because he actually managed to find my home address in the city and confronted me. The more asinine part of him trying to bully me was that he didn't have anything to say that did not make him sound like a huge a-hole. My neighbor even came out and heard him shouting, so she told him off for me, saying that hateful, rude old men like him don't deserve any money or happiness and he should have to donate all of his money to the orphanage for being such a terrible and heartless person. My neighbor is a small, older woman who rarely gets upset with anyone, so to see her tell him how she felt was pretty incredible and hilarious. Plus, he did not even know what to say and just trudged off with his head hanging low and his confidence broken. It was not long before my old farmhouse neighbor decided enough was enough. Apparently living next to the orphanage was just too much for him to bear. In reality, he does not deserve to live next to them because they are too good for him. So that's why he decided to take himself elsewhere and move. His beautiful home and immaculate yard were not enough to make him want to stay anymore. Oh, the humanity. And yeah, ripe stars, I gotta say, that is a beautiful ending to a story and completely unexpected, at least from my perspective. What better revenge can you get on an entitled person, aka neighbor from hell, than to donate your home to an orphanage? It cannot get any better than this. Either way, if you enjoyed the stories, then please don't forget to like the video, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled Neighbor Kid Caused Chaos in My Yard. So, my yard goes pretty close to the neighbor's concrete pad where they have a basketball court set up. Neighborhood kids always go there to play and usually leave their bikes and things on my grass. It's not that big of a deal, except I've had to ask them to move their stuff several times when I am mowing. This is the first time I have mowed this year and the grass is a few inches higher than it should be. Anyway, a kid comes over and I am mowing, but he still puts the basketball he brought with him down in my grass. I get to the basketball and just decide I can nudge it with the front of the mower and out of the way. I made eye contact with the kid several times, waiting for him to move it before I got there, and he never did, so I figured, whatever, it'll roll. Well, I bump it with my mower over to a section of mower grass, and as I continue forward past where it was, there was a loud clunking and crackling like I had just run over a rock. The rock turned out to be his iPhone. He was upset, obviously, that his phone was broken, and I did feel bad, but my thought was that he should have said something or moved it before I got there. He goes home, and about 30 minutes later his mom shows up and tells me I broke it and I am responsible for replacing it, that I should have told him to move his stuff because I'm the adult. I tell her I'm sorry about the phone and politely decline her request. She just says, "I promise you will be paying for it." And then she storms off. I'm not really sure what her next course of action is or what she plans to do. She mentioned something about that she has a friend that is a lawyer, so I guess she could take me to civil court. Am I legally responsible for replacing the phone? Would it be cheaper than court costs if she did choose to take me to court? Update 1 to the story. I thought I would update you all since so many people offered advice in the original post yesterday. Brief summary of what happened. Neighborhood kid left his phone in my grass while I was mowing and I mowed it by mistake. The mother got upset and demanded I pay for it. Well, she, the mother and son showed up at my door around noon and apologized. She said that she misunderstood what happened and thought that I had done it on purpose to teach her son a lesson about leaving his stuff in my yard. I guess he explained to her it was his fault, which I thought was commendable for someone his age. She told me that she just stressed about it because she is a single mother and does not really have the means to replace it at the moment, and that if it was anything else she probably wouldn't have gotten so upset, but he likes hanging out with other kids and that is how she keeps track of him. I then told her about my spare phone, an iPhone 7 and his was a 6S, and I also took the advice of some of the commenters that it might be damaging to just give it to him and that I should perhaps have him work for it. I have a detached garage and have been needing to clean it and told her if he wanted to help me I would give him the phone. He instantly looked excited. I imagine he felt like he would never get a new phone and she acted very grateful and said she could help. Then left and came back an hour later, just the sun this time, and we got started cleaning. It took about 4 hours, a lot of work, but nothing too hard. He is just 12. I had a couple cords of firewood I wanted moved out and stacked into a rack, and then a bunch of boxes I cut up and had him bag and carry to the curb. He swept, had a Coke and a couple slices of pizza, and then got his phone. I had a talk with him about paying attention to him where his things are because it won't always work out like this. I also told him if he wants to mow my yard every weekend and his mom says he can, I will pay him $30 a week. It will probably take him a couple of hours. He again acted excited at the thought of making money, and when I asked him what he would spend it on, he said games. We figured out new games would be about $60 each and worked it out that I would pay him $20 for 3 weeks and then $65 on the 4th week so he could cover tax because it might be hard for him to save. The 4th week he will do an extra little chore to cover the $5, like sweep off the porch or walkway. I hope I've done the right thing and did not make him think that everything just works out, but I did my best to have him earn it. And also hopefully showed an equal measure of kindness that he will carry with him. I also did not want the mother to stress over replacing the phone, as my mom was also a single mom and I know how tough it can be. My own son is just 2, so it was my first real opportunity to pass on some fatherly wisdom, which I hope is what I did. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would say OP solved this situation in a brilliant way and I couldn't have done it any better myself. If you would have been in OP's situation, would you have reacted the same? Let us know what you would have done. The next one was posted by user Needlework Reverie and it is titled Condo Association sent a letter citing inappropriate bylaws to restrict my kid from doing basically anything. My soon-to-be 7-year-old is a good kid who is very energetic and active. I sent her out to play in the courtyard with the other kids while I'm cooking dinner in the evenings to play. She is mostly going around and around on her scooter on the sidewalks, playing on the grass or sometimes climbing the spruce trees. She is very respectful to any adult that she comes across, if talkative. The development is pretty evenly split between young diverse families and white boomers who bought it in the 70s. They are polite and friendly to me and my husband, but yell at my daughter if we are not around, telling her that she cannot scoot around the courtyard, play on the grass, scoot around the parking lot or climb trees. They want her to go play in the play area that is out of sight of the unit, has not been mulched in forever, leaving the equipment very high off the ground, overrun by ants and yellow jackets. A rope climbing structure is so old and worn out that the nylon rope is pretty much gone, leaving the metal cables exposed. I have brought the state of the play area to the attention of various board members in April and May, but nothing has been done. They have cited 2 bylaws which are not applicable to the situation. One talks about keeping children out of trash rooms, laundry rooms and storage areas / not biking through those places. The other bylaw reads as such: no noxious or offensive trait or activity shall be carried on within the project or within any condominium unit situated thereon, nor shall anything be done therein or thereon which may be or become an annoyance to the neighborhood or the owners. No nuisances shall be permitted within the condominium project, nor shall any use or practice be permitted which is or becomes a source of annoyance to the members or which interfere with the peaceful use and possession thereof by the members. I took this to mean no gang-related activity, no drug dealing, no durian, don't cook meth. My downstairs neighbor received a similar letter, and I'm going to ask the parents of the other kids they play with if they have received one too. There is a county noise ordinance in place, but it does not go into effect until 10 p.m. My kid rides her scooter on the sidewalks and in the parking lot, never indoors. She plays non-destructive games on the grass, she climbs trees. The only people that are being obnoxious are the seniors. So, what should I do? Bear in mind, tomorrow is the first day of summer vacation and she's going to be around much more than she was when school was in session. The next one is an update for the same story from September 19, 2019. The board meeting was yesterday. When the floor was open to owner commentary, I raised my hand and told them that we had moved in about 6 months ago and what I liked about the community before telling them about the letter and what it said. I ended with, when I got this letter, it made me feel like the community is not a welcoming place for young families. It turns out that the letter was sent out without the full knowledge and consent of the board. In fact, they had no idea that it was sent out. The president of the board was livid that I and 6 other families that I know of received this letter and told us that our kids were allowed and encouraged to play on their scooters and bikes on the sidewalk. They don't want the kids to play in the parking lots for their safety. They also asked that kids stay out of plantings and off the grass. Then she referred us to the playground that has several safety concerns and mentions the new layers of wood chips that had been put down at the beginning of summer. I told her that while we appreciate the new layer of wood chips, I still had some safety concerns. The end of the slide is about 2 feet off the ground, and when my 3-year-old goes down, she shoots off the end like a cannon. The nylon covering on the climbing structure has come off and I'm worried my kid's fingers could get hurt. There is a strange lurid green fungus the size of a hockey puck by the swings, and when you poke it, it lets off spores and oozes. They will have a contractor come out to give an estimate to fix the playground. The person that sent the letter was counting on us to be intimidated by official stationery, not to talk to each other, and discouraged by the inconvenient board meetings. I am especially upset that 6 or 7 families that I know of received this letter, and 4 of them were renters / people of color. One person is a single man whose nephew visited him for a weekend and brought his bike. I plan on joining the board once I've been here a bit longer and implement community building events so that people don't feel alone. Final update to the story. A friend from college is a paralegal at a corporate law firm and told their boss, a real estate attorney, about what was going on at the time, and he agreed to do a call for free for advice. The strategy that we hammered out was that I would write back asking them to show me what my kid had broken and to give me an annotated list. I also spoke to my uncle, who is the president of his condo board in a different state, about how to address the board and do some community building. The goals were as follows. Kids having a safe, supportive environment to grow up and explore in, also for adults to stop yelling at them. Also a new safe playground. Trees they don't want kids to climb need to have their limbs trimmed to above head height. Also, the pandemic lockdown was interesting in our community. For a while in 2020, no one was allowed in the common areas at all, which was rough. The board tried very hard to push more stringent regulations than even the state was and ended up having to yield to the fact that people were going to walk around the sidewalks masked because they still haven't invented teleporters. Autumn 2020, they finally got 3 people in to take the limbs of the spruce trees to about 5 to 6 feet off the ground and acted like this was a punishment for not keeping our kids off the trees. We did not want them climbing them either. The funny thing about free will is how people are just going to do what they want anyway. I also had to listen to a grown man inform me that I did not know how to control my kids in a Zoom meeting. This is when I asked him if he had always done what his mother wanted him to when she wanted him to. The subject changed after that. Spring 2021, they put up a new climbing structure that will wear much better. They've also been mulching the playground in the spring and the autumn. Mulch gets the strangest mushrooms. Our current issue is just making sure that the property management company and the board are aware that children are a protected class and have the same rights as adults, such as the peaceful enjoyment of the property. A child's definition of what that means is different than an adult's, but not wrong. We've been teaching the kids to respond to nasty seniors talking to them by just saying, "That was mean and rude," boldly. And it is not rude or mean to inform someone of their behavior. We have not been getting any more letters about inappropriate children. I guess being shamed by a child for your bad behavior is more effective than any other idea we have come up with. And you know, Ripe Stars, this story reminds me of my old neighbors way back in the past when I was living near an elementary school. This was an older couple and they always complained about the school children being loud in the break, even though they knew that the breaks would obviously be loud when you live right next to a school. How can you buy a house like that and then expect a school to be quiet at certain times of the day? Absolutely incomprehensible for me.